fight lies before us, lies before us. A fight for action. A fight for action. A fight against the forces of drift, of despair, despair. A fight for action. A fight for action. A fight against the forces of drift, of despair, despair. A fight for vigor, for vitality and manhood. Manhood. True democracy only begins when the will of the people is carried out.
We say at last that we've had enough of the old men and the old ways, and we are going to have a new movement for the new age in which we live. The worldwide fascist movement has made a new advance in Germany. They have reached power after polling over 17 million votes in a general election. And we believe that Britain, where our British Union of Fascists has already advanced at a record rate, will be the next country to give fascism a chance.
Tower of London, 5,000 fascists rally to their mobilization for the much advertised march through the East End, and Sir Oswald Mosley, black shirt leader, arrives at Royal Mint Street to inspect his followers. Communists, Labourites and Jews jam the fascist route, resisting the peaceful efforts of the outnumbered police to clear the way. 6,000 police are already concentrated in the area. Others are rushed to reinforce them.
We were in a fight. I should not expel every man who was fighting with Jews in the street, particularly if they attacked us with razors and other weapons. We were in a fight. That's why we wore uniform, in order to deal with men like this who broke up our meetings by organized violence. And of course I would not expel black shirts who fought Jews in the street when they were attacked by Jews. What I would expel is a man who went around saying that we should deal with all Jews in a horrible fashion, ill-treat them or bully them. Not at all. We were fighting Jews for one reason, to stop a war with Germany. We were in a fight.
In 1931, the national government was formed, and it seemed to all of us, and I think looking back at now, it seems to most people, inadequate. And when I met Oswald Mosley, there was somebody who seemed to know the answer. It struck a tremendous chord in a great number of people. Well, now, looking back, one sees that he was right, and even political opponents have said that many times since. And had one taken his advice in those days, the whole thing would have been completely different.
Fascism in Great Britain has advanced more rapidly than any other country in the world. Not because our people had to adopt fascism, not under the lash of economic necessity as in other lands, but because they desired a new creed, a new and profound spiritual movement.
Fascism is new to Great Britain. Because it is new, it will be attacked by some and laughed at by others. Fools always laugh at what they do not understand.
Ladies and gentlemen, there are some occasions when it is good to take stock of the position, to see how far wrong we have been, or how far right we have been, see where we stand. I claim that at present we have proved right in Europe, in Africa, and in the social policies which depended on our principles in those questions. And we have been right, not because we were guided by any peculiar vision or forethought. We have been guided above all by the principle, by a belief in the underlying unity of Europe. You may have observed that nothing really happens until the old show breaks down. In Africa, another place in which our policies have been so completely and entirely justified, I won't say triumphantly, because that's not a word to use in a situation of tragedy, but have been completely justified. Nothing could be done. Nobody'd listen. Yards of nonsense were turned out until the plain truth was proved. This time, alas, very often in blood and in a horror. We stood throughout again in Africa the perfectly clear-cut principle for which we were tremendously abused with every sort of foolish and disgusting lie. It was said we wanted to persecute the blacks, that we were racialists who wanted to put our people on top of one another, of another people. All those disgusting and foolish lies were told about. We said, of course, as I always say, naturally we believe in our own race. Any man or woman worth anything believes in his own race as he believes in his own family. But because you believe in your own race or in your own family doesn't mean you want to injure other races or other families. How often have I said a father of a family should know that it's his first duty in nature to look after his own children? But that doesn't mean that he wants to hurt or to injure other children. On the contrary, you will do them any good turn that you can. And our attitude was always the same. Our first duty was to our own people, our British and European peoples. But also, in addition to that, of course, we would do what we could to help other people as well. And who doesn't want to feed the hungry? Of course we should feed the hungry and the suffering of the world. Let's talk less and let's get on with the doing of it. Let us use the European surplus for that purpose. And at the same time, we can keep a healthy agricultural population on our own land, in our own countries,
We can feed the hungry of the world, and we can defeat the policies of communism. But we pointed out the lines of policy then being pursued were bound to end in disaster. They talked of what they called multiracialism, which was simply a universal mix-up. Take humanity, put it in a bag, shake it together, and heaven knows what would come out. They wanted to get rid of what existed, all the little gray people of the world who hate the beautiful diversity of human development. They always want to get rid of the natural, the noble, and the beautiful. They wanted to get rid of it. They wanted to make all nature as gray as themselves. It was their deep instinct. We were always opposed to that. We said, no, it won't work, and it's undesirable that it should work. We can live in peace and friendship side by side in separate nations and separate developments, but we cannot have the mix-up of peoples and races who are widely different and divergent. It will lead to nothing but trouble. It will lead to nothing but trouble. This policy of mixture, what does it really mean? It doesn't mean freedom. It doesn't mean brotherhood or any of the cant and humbug which is taught. That is just the mask for some of the vilest forces on earth to exploit the peoples in the future as they have done in the past. Every one of us in this hall was old enough to see before the war. Every one of you know what happened. How the financial forces in the 30s went into these backward countries, into India within the empire, into Hong Kong, into Japan, into China, and exploited these peoples to produce cheap, sweaty goods which ruined the great industries of Britain and of Europe, which put Lancashire out of business in the cotton trade, Yorkshire out of business in the woolen trade. And these poor devils of coolies were exploited for a wage of a few shillings a week. For what purpose? To enable the City of London and Wall Street, New York, to make fatter profits by sweating them and helping us. That is why it was done. That was the whole purpose. And with what result? China thrown into the arms of communism. The largest population in the world simply tossed as a present to communism. Because if you treat people like that, it's the only possible result. If there's no one to save them, no one to help them, and they've simply been ground into poverty and sweating and exploitation, what can you expect except they go communist as they did? And all these countries which have been exploited, thrown and tossed aside by finance, are now becoming the victims of communism. So finance seeks fresh fields of exploitation. Where do they turn? When the old people are exhausted. When many a poor laborer has died of consumption and of other horrible diseases in their sweatshops, or when they're exhausted fields of exploitation, where do they turn now? New pastures, new forests, fresh virgin land. And then you erect a Union Jack or another flag of Europe, and under that flag, where you allow these things to happen as we have done in the past, and those poor devils that have been sweated and exploited in Africa, like the other poor devils in China, India, and Japan, a great new field for sweatshops to be opened up, so that these new industries which we're creating in Britain today will be destroyed as the old industries were. Simplified, rationalized machinery with a few white surveyors, and then the masses of cheap colored labor torn off the land and taken into the sweatshops to work and labor and cough their guts out with tuberculosis until they too are thrown on the scrap heap of the sweatshops. Is that worthy of Britain? Is that to be the future of Europe? And is this competition to be organized within our European Brotherhood, bringing in these sweat fields in Africa into our Europe civilization so that the financial power in one European country can use it against the financial power in another? All the great financial central power of the world, now shifted from the City of London to Wall Street, New York, shall be able, on the mass of money, of wealth, and of power which it brings to it, again and again to exert its influence in politics, until, as you see today, it is childish nonsense to say that a British government rules Britain. It's It's nothing to do with British government or the British people. The government of the world is the financial government, the power of money and of money alone. We have been guided above all by the principle, by a belief in the underlying unity of Europe. As ex-servicemen of the previous war, we did not believe in the division of Europe, in the massacre without good reason of yet another generation of young Europeans being thrown against each other to fight and destroy one another in unnecessary war. And we opposed that war by all the political means open to us because we believed in the unity of Europe, and we did not believe in the division of our continent and the destruction of its young life without vital reason. I have spoken before, and I shall not repeat myself tonight, spoken of what took me into politics first, the concept of the young airmen with whom I served in the First World War, the men who on each side knew each other and loved each other in friendly competition in the days of 1914, in the early days of European flying, and were then thrown in mortal combat against each other by old men who were far away from the scene of that combat and had divided Europe in a totally unnecessary quarrel. And I described how coming back, I and others resolved these things should not occur again. These things should not occur again. Anyhow, that belongs now to past history. We followed then the resolve that these European peoples should not be rent by fratricidal war, but should come together in a great union, which should make them the greatest and most beneficent power on earth. But how on earth can you begin to do that when you're a dozen little different warring countries all fighting each other? You must have a great community organized under one government with a definite economic leadership. Europe a nation, Europe a nation. Europe a nation meant quite simply Europe with its own government, a government which would fulfill all major purposes. But it did not mean a universal mix-up, the loss of all our national characters, turning Frenchmen into Englishmen or Englishmen into Germans or Italians or anything else. Anybody who's mad enough to try to do that, of course, could not possibly succeed. You couldn't do it in hundreds of years, not in centuries, not in a millennium. And above all, we want to preserve national characters, to drive still deeper in the soil of our continent the individual roots. When you make the great tree of Europe reaching up with its branches towards the skies, the roots of the individual peoples, British, French, Germans, and the rest of it, drive still deeper into their native soil. And the only possible security we can have in the modern world of continental politics is to have a great union, a big community, within which we can preserve our national identity. Our task is to do what we are doing, and we began at Venice to bring together the best as we saw them of the Europeans, to get them to take decisions together. First great step, after that the usual trouble, the difficulty, the struggle to move forward. Always in human affairs the same story, but willpower, endurance, and above all faith and belief overcomes all. And my friends, let me say to you tonight, that now in the decisions of Britain, which have been bad in recent years, you have the greatest hindrance to the final achievement of Europe. therefore, perhaps in that respect, rests upon you, upon all of us, than any other people. Because if tomorrow the British people decided to do these things, the news of that would go like an electric shock of awakening and of hope right through Europe. Nothing matters so much as awakening our own people. We must bring Britain into this immense concern, which is going to be Europe, and is going to save mankind. Awakening our own people.
Still, the time of struggle ends. See overall the streets, the fascist banner praising, triumphant standard of the race we won.
British Union is the movement of the people of Britain. It is their answer and their challenge to the tyranny that today oppresses them. That tyranny is the money power of international finance, which commands government, parliament, and the old political parties. In the service of finance, an obsolete and decadent system is preserved, both in government and industry. Government is paralyzed by a system of universal talk in which nothing can be done, in order that real power may rest elsewhere, not in the hands of those chosen by the people, but in the hands of those chosen by finance, In face of these new conditions, how can any international system maintain the British standard of life, that alone increase it to the high level that modern science makes possible and that our great people deserve? For in this modern age, science gives to us British the power to use our own great heritage of British Empire to build the greatest civilization the world has ever seen. We have the finest workers and technicians. One thing alone we lack, a market to absorb the great wealth that modern industry can produce. That market is the purchasing power of the British people. They are robbed of the power to buy British goods because their wages are dragged down by cheap slave competition from abroad. They are subject to that competition because finance draws its usury from foreign investment in the shape of cheap foreign goods. We British are denied our heritage by the power of usury, So we challenge finance and the parties who have sold the people to usury. To carry out the people's will and to subordinate to the nation the vested interests who today exploit the people, we ask from the people power for the people's government. That power will be freely given by the vote of the people and can be removed by the vote of the people. But the government elected by the people must have power to act. If the people's government has not power to govern, then the money power will continue to govern. That money power has divided the British people in order that it may rule them, We have been divided by the war of party, of class, and of faction. So the British, who for 1,000 years have never been conquered by the foe without, have been subdued by the foe within. Britons who should be brothers have fought each other, and alien finance has conquered. Therefore to our brother Britons we say, unite. Britain united is invincible and irresistible, and together we will build the mightiest civilization mankind has known.
This great meeting is gathered here tonight to hear the policy and fate of fascism. patriotism above all rests upon teamwork. The ability to pull together. The power to subordinate every interest of section or individual to the nation as a whole. In the lives of great nations comes a moment of decision, comes a moment of destiny. And this nation again and again in the great hours of its fate has swept aside convention, has swept aside the little men of talk and of delay, and has decided to follow men and movements who say we go forward to action. Let who dare follow us in this hour. That is the permanent, the mighty mood of Britain. We say that England is not finished. We say that England is not dead. We say, and I ask you to say with us, lift up your voices in this great meeting in the heart of England. Send to all the world a message. England lives and marches on.
My friends, do live in that sense that you are European. My friends, do live in that sense that you are European. That you come from people who face tremendous odds again and again. That much is against you, but you've got within you that will, that spirit above all, that faith and that belief, which will lead the generations to come and look back at you in the pages of history with the proud words, to England, to Britain, to Europe, they were true. My friends, do live in that sense that you are European.
And I claim that in the ranks of our black-shirt legions march the mighty ghosts of England's past, and their strong arms around us, and their voices echo down the ages, saying onward. And their voices echo. Down the ages. Saying onward.
I could not ask to live at any other moment of history than this. Because never has mankind, never has the human species been confronted with such possibilities, with such choices of disaster or of greater heights and greater glory. My friends, do live in that sense that you are European. Do live in that sense that you are European. remember that always. Live in that sense, I beg of you, of history and of destiny.
speaking to you in the Cabinet Room at 10 Downing Street. This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note stating that unless we heard from them by 11 o'clock, that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland, a state of war would exist between us. I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany.
The war we opposed has landed Britain in the biggest mess and Europe and us all in the greatest danger our history has ever known. You can now judge the results for yourselves. I ask you whether we were wrong after all to have opposed that war. My friends, there is nothing in my life of which I am so proud as having suffered at that time for a great belief, and you may yet be glad that there are some Englishmen who are known throughout the world to have on their hands no blood from the Brothers' War.
Germany calling, Germany calling, Germany calling.
The financiers, the vested interests, and the old parties who serve them hate our movement and use their money power to destroy us. They control, directly or indirectly, the press, the cinema, and the radio. Now, what is their case against us? And what is the truth? They attack us for our policy in the last war, when they imprisoned us without trial in order to stop our mouths. They have never been able even to suggest that we did anything against our country. We were patriots who had fought in the previous war, but we were determined to save the new generation from another unnecessary war, which would bring even greater disaster to mankind. They imprisoned us because they feared we would persuade the people to make peace. But were we not right? Are we not now proved to have been right? What good has that war done to anyone? My friends, you can begin now to serve our people, our country, and our brother Europeans. Enter the ranks of our movement and begin this great service. Our aim is Europe, a nation. Our creed is European socialism. This is the coming brotherhood of the Europeans. All shall serve each other within that brotherhood, but none shall exploit. You have the same spirit if you belong to the best of the British. Come to our brotherhood and strive for the coming victory. The days of defeat and disaster are behind. The hard and testing days of struggle for the very life and soul of our country of Europe lie ahead. We need you. Come to us. I stretch out my hand to you, my old and my new companions. Together we will yet save the lands we love. Together we will build as a great reality the world of which men have dreamed.
Until our sacrifice is atoned and our end is achieved. And ever since then, I stood and fought for the union of Europe. And now we bring together in the National Party of Europe at last an achievement after years, my lifetime of labor. The best, the young, the brave, the noble, together. And I say, Europe arise. We win tomorrow. So much of the past. Let us look at the future. What do we propose for your judgment and decision? We seek only to serve you, the people. We can do nothing without your support and enthusiasm. All the talk about dictatorship is sheer nonsense. No one can rule
a great and highly educated people against their will. No one can do anything worth doing without the love of the people, which is only given to those who serve them with high ideals, wisdom, and courage. He said, Europe, a nation, was my description of what we mean. The union of the European peoples as a united nation. If we do not have true union, we shall still have national intrigues and division. It can be done, too, without war or oppression of other peoples. In our strength, we shall not attack or oppress other people. In this way, all the peoples will be free to develop their own lands and their own cultures. We shall help each other. We will therefore be friends with all, but live only in our own family, and that family is Europe. This is the coming brotherhood of the Europeans.
March the mighty ghost of England's past, on their strong arms around us, on their voices echo down the ages, saying onward.
It's one of two people speaking there. It's reminiscent either of Hitler or of Charlie Chaplin's Great Dictator. Which is it?
Sir Oswald walks to a truck to begin his talk, and the sky falls in. The Bobbies had their hands full rescuing the man who tried to make the black shirts popular in England. His dignity badly ruffled, Sir Oswald continues to his platform as the police hold back jeering crowds.
What's all that business?
But don't you know what that is? Don't you know what that is? Don't you know what that is? That is a salute 2,000 years before Hitler was born. All the movements of Renaissance in Europe adopted the European salute. And because we were fighting against people who gave the clenched fist salute. It was an answer to that, the answer to the Communist International, the results of which you've seen recently in the support of the old parties, and that's what we were fighting, and giving the salute of European manhood, and I'm proud of it.
A fight lies before us, A fight for action. A fight for action. A fight against the forces of drift, of despair. A fight for action. A fight for action. A fight against the forces of drift, of despair. A fight for vigor, for vitality and manhood. True democracy only begins when the will of the people is carried out.
But in spirit I am with you always, always. My comrades, in struggle. Our fight is for the soul of Britain, In our movement, that great character of the British has been reborn, and for that reason we carry within us the destiny of Britain. We care not whether we win tomorrow morning or at the end of a lifetime of labor and of struggle. All we care is that win we will, because Britain demands it, and no power on earth can hold down the will within us. The first quality is the power to endure. Constancy, loyalty to cause and comrade, manhood and stability of nature, These are the qualities of the true Briton and the true revolutionary. Struggles we have had and will have, blows we have taken and will again, Victories we have had and will have again, yes, greater victories than even Britons have ever known. Through good and ill we march on, till victory be won, for this is the character of the true revolutionary. Together in Britain, we have lit a flame that the ages shall not extinguish. Guard that sacred flame, my brother Black Shirts, until it illumines Britain and lights again the path of mankind.
We have believed in ourselves as Englishmen and Europeans. We have believed in our fellow Europeans, and we have believed in the destiny of Europe. My friends, it's all there. It's all waiting. Of course it can be done. It depends upon ourselves. You say, but again, we're scattered individuals. Everything's against us. Governments, money, press, television, all the new forces are used against us. All the great forces, all the material powers of the world, you say are against us. And so they are. You're quite right to feel that. And I don't underrate it, but I don't despair. And you shouldn't despair, because you, like I, have read something of history. You know something of the record and the achievement of the Europeans. And dark as this hour is, it's no darker, it's not as dark as some of the hours you've known in European history. When everything was cowardice, treachery, and betrayal. And when the Saracen hordes from far outside Europe swept right across that continent and would have come on over our own Britain too if they hadn't been stopped. And it didn't only happen once, it's happened more than once. Small bands of men came together in resolution, in absolute determination, giving themselves completely and saying Europe shall live. And stood firm and faced the menace to Europe, its values, its civilizations, the glory of its achievement, all those things in mortal danger. And they stood firm, they faced it, they came together, and more rallied to their standards, and those hordes were thrown back again and again and again. And Europe lived in triumph because the will of Europe still endured. Other forces against us. Not those particular forces, but the power of money, the power of press. All those things are against us. And how can you stop it? Stop it. My friends, by an act of will. an act of the European will. My friends, nothing has ever been done yet in this world except by the collective action of individuals coming together in faith and belief, in will and resolution, and then making their collective action, building parties and popular movements to do it. And that's what we have to do in the modern world. Defeat communism, and we'll rouse this will of Europe to do what has to be done. Because it is the will of Europe, the will and the will alone, which is needed in everything. If the European peoples decided tomorrow to do it, they could come together, make an European government. They could sort the world out, sort the world out, sort the world out, sort the world out. What can you do, we say? Come together, get going, get working. Inspire other people like yourself, like yourself, like yourself. But if we can bring together with us enough of people like ourselves, not only in Britain, but as we are doing in other lands with other friends and comrades of ours, in other countries of Europe, and gradually that force mounts and gathers strength. My friends, today, just as much as in the past, we can meet the dark forces which in another way threaten our European life with eternal night. We can rally those forces, and in the end, we can prevail and we can triumph. It's been done before, and it can be done again, be done again, be done again. My friends, it's an immense responsibility. You're living in a historic age. Do remember that always. Live in that sense, I beg of you, of history and of destiny. Destiny. Live in that sense, I beg of you, of history and of destiny. Destiny. Do live in that sense that you are European. Come together, get going, get working. Inspire other people like yourself, like yourself, like yourself, like yourself, like yourself. Inspire other people like yourself.